This lounge is for premium guests, not unattended children from economy. Clarissa Vaughn's voice cracked through the air like a slap, sharp, loud, and deliberate. Heads turned. Conversations halted. The Grand Vista First Class Lounge at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, usually a hushed oasis of clinking glass and quiet jazz, froze. You could have heard a pin drop, or in this case, a Kindle. A little black boy looked up slowly from his chair by the window. Not frightened, not confused, just still. His name was Isaiah Spencer. He was 10 years old, and Clarissa Vaughn had just made the worst mistake of her 30-year airline career. Tell us where you're watching from, and tell us, what would you do if someone humiliated your child in public like this? Isaiah's hands didn't move. They rested on his lap, calm. The only thing that moved was his gaze, lifted to meet hers. Level. He didn't say a word. Clarissa stepped closer, her heels clicking with righteous fury. I asked you a question. Where are your parents? This lounge is for first-class passengers only. You're not supposed to be in here. A man nearby cleared his throat awkwardly. Another leaned in, pretending not to listen, but everyone was listening. Isaiah blinked once, then said evenly, I have a first-class ticket, seat 2A. Clarissa scoffed. That may be, but this lounge has standards. And frankly, this kind of behavior, sitting alone, no supervision, it's disruptive. Her voice wasn't just loud. It was meant to be heard. It was meant to embarrass him. And it worked, for about 3 seconds. Isaiah slowly reached into his navy blazer pocket and pulled out a matte black device, no larger than a car key. With a quiet double tap, a faint blue glow pulsed across its surface. Behind the tinted lenses of his glasses, a hidden interface came alive. Witness protocol activated location. C. Grand Vista Lounge. B. Subject. Clarissa Vaughn violation. Verbal aggression, racial coded exclusion. Dignity attack, minor. Operator Echo Kid submitted. Clarissa turned her back and walked off with a mutter. Unbelievable. Isaiah said nothing. He sat back down, opened his Kindle. The jazz resumed. But something invisible had shifted. In exactly 10 minutes, 17 Grand Vista first-class lounges around the world would receive an emergency ethics notice. 3 internal ethics officers were already flagged by Isaiah's report. Clarissa's name, cross-referenced with past incidents, had triggered a system-wide red flag protocol, and she didn't even know yet. Back at the lounge counter, a young staffer in a black vest leaned in, whispering, I saw what she did. That was disgusting. You okay? Isaiah nodded without looking up. She just triggered witness. The staffer's eyebrows rose. You're on the protocol list? Isaiah glanced over. I helped build it. The man froze. He didn't ask another question. Exactly 10 minutes later, 2 men in suits entered the lounge. Not TSA, not airport staff. Internal ethics officers from the Grand Vista Corporate Board. They walked straight to the manager's desk and handed over a sealed folder. Flight. Justice Index. Red flag incident. Level 2. Escalation. Whispers spread like smoke. The lounge manager's eyes darted around, then locked onto Clarissa, now busy lecturing a couple over coffee temperature. He approached her slowly. Ms. Vaughn, we need to speak. Now. Clarissa didn't budge. I'm with guests. It's urgent. I need you to surrender your badge and step away from the lounge. Clarissa laughed, loud and defiant. Excuse me? The second officer stepped forward, holding out the folder. This is not optional. She snatched the folder, flipping it open, then froze. Her face turned the color of unbaked dough. Her name, the timestamp, the location, and a clear violation log tied to ethic rank. The AI-powered system evaluating behavioral ethics across premium lounges in 17 international airports. Who filed this? She asked, her voice suddenly dry. The men didn't answer, but Clarissa's eyes drifted, as if drawn magnetically, across the room, to the boy in the navy blazer. Still sitting, still calm, still unreadable. He didn't look back at her. He didn't need to. The entire lounge fell into a heavy silence as Clarissa was escorted out, badge removed, her career suddenly dangling by a thread, shredded not by shouting or vengeance, but by something far more dangerous. A quiet child who knew exactly where power lived. Moments later, Isaiah's mother returned, breathless and holding 2 boarding passes. "Everything good?" she asked, looking down. Isaiah stood, dusted his sleeves, and tucked the device away. "All good," he said simply. "We're on time." Isaiah Spencer didn't speak much during takeoff. He rarely did. As the Boeing 787 climbed above the Seattle skyline, slicing through layers of gray and light, his fingers moved steadily across the tablet resting on his lap. Next to him, his mother leaned back with her eyes closed, but he knew she wasn't asleep. She never really was, at least not when it came to him. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was how they communicated, comfortable, protective. But inside, Isaiah's mind was racing. What had happened in the lounge wasn't new. Not to him, not to anyone who looked like him and had been told, sometimes quietly, sometimes loudly, that they didn't belong. Today it came with a raised voice and a pointed finger. Tomorrow, it might come with a locked door or a computer glitch that loses your booking. This time, though, Isaiah didn't shrink. He didn't even flinch. He did what he was trained to do. He executed. The witness protocol he had built with his late adoptive father, Ben, wasn't about punishment. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. It didn't shout. It didn't argue. It observed, recorded, remembered, and then connected the dots others refused to see. He tapped into the back-end system, fingers flying fast but smooth. Live incident logged, level 2. Violation location, C. Grand Vista Lounge. Subject, Clarissa Vaughn. Status, suspended, pending review. Review triggered in 17 lounges on the map. 17 red dots blinked like tiny warnings. Tokyo, Frankfurt, JFK, Johannesburg, LAX. It was spreading faster than expected. Isaiah nodded to himself. "That was fast," he whispered. "What was?" his mom asked without opening her eyes. He hesitated, then smiled a little. "The Wi-Fi. It's actually decent today." She smirked knowingly, but said nothing. Ben used to say that coding wasn't about power. It was about listening to the gaps, the silences, the things people did when they thought no one was watching. That's what Witness was for. It wasn't just a program. It was a quiet observer, a conscience built into the system. Isaiah opened the archive. Tokyo, Haneda. 2 black teens questioned and detained after lounge entry. No violations found. Paris, CDG. Elderly woman denied first-class entry despite boarding pass. Staff claimed it was a misunderstanding. Newark, Latina mother asked to leave due to excess baggage, despite being under the weight limit. Same airline, different cities, same pattern. He scrolled to a private folder. The Ones No One Believes. Created by Ben Spencer. It held hundreds of entries. Stories dismissed as isolated. Minor. Unimportant. Until Witness noticed the patterns. Isaiah hovered over the latest one. Clarissa Vaughn. Seattle. CE. Verbal discrimination against minor. Flagged. He added it to the folder. He didn't feel joy. He didn't feel triumph. He just felt clarity. Out the window, the clouds stretched for miles. Somewhere, another kid might be sitting in another lounge, hearing the same words Isaiah had heard. "You don't belong here." Maybe they wouldn't have Witness. Maybe they'd just sit quietly and take it. But not today. Ben used to tell him, "You don't change the system by yelling at it. You change it by rewriting the rules it runs on." Isaiah didn't just write the rules. He built the language the system used to think. He turned to his mom. "Can I ask you something real?" She opened her eyes. Always. If Ben were here, would he be proud? She looked at him, full of something deeper than just love. Ben never needed you to make him proud, but if he could see what you're doing now, how you turned pain into a framework that protects kids like you, yeah, Isaiah, he'd be proud beyond words. Isaiah didn't reply. He just nodded and tucked the tablet away. A flight attendant approached, different from the one in the lounge. She was younger, maybe late 20s, neat uniform, kind eyes. "Mr. Spencer," she said gently, "we just wanted to thank you for flying with us today. If there's anything you need, just let us know." Isaiah blinked. "You know who I am?" The attendant smiled. "Well, corporate sent an alert. Told us to treat you with special courtesy. Said you're on the Veritas Ethics Advisory list." His mother raised an eyebrow. The attendant leaned in slightly. "It's not public, just internal protocol." Isaiah looked down at his hand, then back up. "Thanks, but I don't want special treatment." "You earned it," she replied. "Actually, you designed it." She gave a small nod of respect and walked away. Isaiah looked at his mom. "I didn't ask them to send anything." "You didn't have to," she said. Halfway across the country, inside a sleek office in downtown Chicago, a Veritas executive refreshed his incident feed. Clarissa Vaughn's case had already reached the top 5 trending tags across the global platform. He clicked on the source. Filed by Echo Kid. He dropped his coffee, then picked up the phone. "Call the board. He's active again." Back in seat 2A, Isaiah finally closed his eyes, and for the first time in days, he slept. In a sleek corner office on the 47th floor of the Veritas building in downtown Chicago, the air was unusually tense. Not because something had gone wrong, but because something had finally gone right. Lana Ortega, Chief Ethics Officer at Veritas Global Systems, stared at her dashboard. 19 incident reports, flagged across 7 countries, all within 6 hours. Not just flagged, auto-linked, behavior tagged, and cross-verified with internal archives. All of them pointed back to one trigger: user tag, Echo Kid, Sea Lounge violation, Clarissa Vaughn. She tapped to open the live footage. Clarissa's voice rang out over the speakers, loud and dismissive. "You don't belong here!" The black boy in the video, quiet, steady, maybe 11 years old, stood still. No tears, no yelling, just silence. A silence that spoke volumes. 10 minutes later, the system began doing what it was designed to do: respond, correlate, adjust. "Is he really back?" someone asked in the room. Lana didn't look up. "He never left," she replied quietly. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away at Veritas's southeast hub in Atlanta, a private conference room buzzed with strategy updates. 12 senior advisors sat around a long oak table while multiple wall screens lit up with cascading impact reports. 17 international lounges, policy suspensions under review, 5 airport contracts, audit protocols triggered, 2 airline CEOs, flagged for board-level ethics hearings. At the head of the table, Malik Brewster, a former Department of Justice analyst and Veritas's current strategic director, leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "We always knew Isaiah Spencer wasn't just some gifted kid. But what he deployed today, it's not just a system anymore. It's alive. It's adaptive. It's self-calibrating in real time." Nina Cho, head of systems integration, added, "It didn't just detect abuse. It understood it, contextually. It knew what crossed the line even when no one else did." One screen blinked red with a summary. Clarissa Vaughn. Sea Lounge. Level 2 discrimination flag. Status escalated. Malik tapped his pen on the table. And the craziest part? He didn't say a single word. He didn't fight, he didn't plead, he just logged in. He didn't raise his voice, Nina said. He raised the standard. 30,000 feet in the air, Isaiah stirred in seat 2A. The clouds below looked like shattered ice under a silver light. He blinked at the tablet in front of him, his system's dashboard pulsing with new updates. His mom passed him a water bottle. "You doing okay?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "Just watching it move." He tapped to review the impact. One click. Dozens of terminals shifting policies. Lounge rules being rewritten. Staff being pulled for retraining. All from a quiet act of logging what had really happened. His mother watched him, then asked, "You ready for this to grow beyond you?" Isaiah paused. "Ben used to say a good system isn't measured by what it catches, but what it changes when you're not around." She smiled. "Then looks like you built a good one." Back at SkyNova Airlines HQ, a panic meeting was underway. The airline's legal team, PR, and executive leadership stared at an internal memo with disbelief. Immediate ethics freeze. Veritas compliance breach. Trigger ID. Echo Kid. 1. Platform. Witness protocol. Impact. 32 mm in suspended contracts, plus reputation watch list. One exec muttered, "Who is this Echo Kid?" The PR director looked up, pale. "Not a hacker, not a whistleblower, just a kid. And he just cost us access to 17 lounges and every major tech investor with ethics clauses." By evening, it was already headline news. Breaking, Veritas freezes airline contracts across 7 countries. Source linked to youth-led ethics AI on Twitter, #Witness protocol trended for hours. No one had a photo. No press knew his real name. Only the username echoed through the chaos. Echo Kid. Isaiah didn't smile when he saw the trend. He didn't want to trend. He wanted the silence of people like him to finally register as evidence. He wanted a system that didn't wait for someone to scream before it acted. As the plane began descending toward Washington, D.C., his tablet pinged with a final message. From Lana Ortega. Subject: "You changed everything. Let's make it official." Body: "We'd like to invite you to serve as a technical advisor to the Veritas Ethics Oversight Board. Your system didn't just catch the flaws. It revealed the blueprint. Call us. You choose when." Isaiah stared at the screen, finger hovering over the reply. Then he locked the tablet and looked out the window. Not yet. There were still people out there being told they didn't belong. Still, stories the system hadn't learned how to hear, and Isaiah wasn't finished building the ears for it. For the first time in a long while, Isaiah wasn't tracking data. He was tracking eyes. The eyes of passengers on Flight 712, the morning route from DC to San Diego, shifted toward him when he walked down the aisle. Quiet, backpack over one shoulder, navy hoodie zipped to his chin. Some looked curious, some looked skeptical, and some lingered a little too long. He didn't need to wonder why. Echo Kid was trending again, and someone had leaked a still from airport surveillance. Just a blurry frame of a boy standing calmly in a first-class lounge while an adult screamed in his face. Someone had typed in the caption, "He didn't flinch. He coded consequences." Isaiah kept his gaze down and slid into seat 4C, exit row, extra legroom. No first class this time. Not because he couldn't afford it, but because he didn't want a replay of that morning in Seattle. Besides, he had other work. He tapped open the witness dashboard, not to monitor, to teach it. He was rewriting parameters again, this time refining how the system read facial tension, voice inflection, microaggression phrasing. Witness was growing smarter. But smart didn't mean fair. Fairness had to be taught. And the ones who taught it? People like him. People who had lived through being overlooked, labeled, dismissed. Isaiah adjusted a few variables in the lounge context model and paused. Then he typed into the notes field, "You can't detect disrespect with just volume. Sometimes silence screams louder than shouting." An announcement crackled overhead. "Ladies and gentlemen, please ensure your seatbelts are fastened." The voice stopped, then restarted, more clipped. "We're currently waiting on final clearance from gate operations due to a flag on security review. Estimated delay, 7 minutes. Isaiah didn't flinch. He already knew. Veritas had quietly deployed its ground ethics protocol in 5 new airports this week. Airlines flagged in recent witness reports would face random departure audits. It wasn't about revenge. It was about recalibration. Meanwhile, across the tarmac in Terminal B, Clarissa Vaughn sat in a small HR conference room surrounded by 3 lawyers and one too-calm supervisor from Sky Nova. She didn't know the cameras were rolling. She didn't know the data logs were live. She just knew her badge had been deactivated that morning, and that some boy, some child, had pressed a button and ruined her career. Except that wasn't true. She had done that. The boy just held up a mirror. Back in seat 4C, Isaiah took a breath and closed the laptop. He looked out the window, not just at the clouds, but at his own reflection in the glass. He saw someone tired, someone 10 minutes older than he should have been. His mom's words came back to him. "You didn't just make a watchdog program. You made a conscience." That scared him more than anything. Because if Witness was becoming a conscience, whose? Just then, a girl 2 rows ahead turned in her seat. She was maybe 13, mixed race, soft curls. She smiled shyly at Isaiah. "You're him, right?" she whispered. "The kid from the video?" Isaiah hesitated, then nodded once. She grinned. "Thanks." "For what?" he asked. "For making them listen." He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. When the plane finally took off, the sky looked different, not brighter, not darker, just sharper. Like the world had more edges now. Isaiah opened his laptop again. Witness had logged 6 new incident queries just since boarding. 1 from Tokyo, 1 from Paris, 2 from Chicago lounges, another in Nairobi. The last one caught his eye. Origin, Flight 923, in-flight cabin crew conflict. Status, under review. He clicked it open. There on screen, grainy footage showed a child, black, maybe 10, being told by a male flight attendant to keep it down while reading aloud from a book. No yelling, no noise, just reading. The algorithm flagged it instantly. Condescending tone, repeated escalation, unequal application of quiet zone policy. The attendant had made no such remark to the white child in 3A, who was playing music without headphones. Isaiah leaned back. He didn't know that boy's name, but Witness had heard him. Halfway through the flight, a flight attendant approached him. This one different, older, kind eyes. She crouched slightly to speak at his level. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said. "Some of us have been trying to speak up for years. Your system made them start listening to us too." Isaiah blinked. He hadn't expected that. He'd been so focused on protecting passengers, he hadn't stopped to think about the quiet crew members watching injustice happen every day, with no power to stop it. "You're welcome," he said softly. She smiled and walked away. By the time they landed in San Diego, Witness had added a new module, Internal Crew Defense Reports. Submitted anonymously, protected automatically, read globally. Isaiah didn't have to announce it. The system would just do what it was built to do, elevate quiet truths. When he stepped off the plane, reporters waited outside the gate. His mom stepped in front of them with one firm hand and said, "No comment." Isaiah smiled to himself. The system didn't need headlines. It just needed humans who still gave a damn. The morning news didn't open with weather. It opened with a map. Red dots blinking across 3 continents, each representing a flight delayed, a gate closed, a staff member suspended. A quiet ripple of consequences. No sirens, no hashtags. Just change, measurable and methodical. At the center of the map, one blinking light labeled Witness Triage Active, and one boy's blurred out profile. Isaiah saw it all while sipping orange juice in his kitchen. He didn't flinch. He just raised an eyebrow. His mom leaned in from behind. "You see this?" "Yeah," he said, eyes still on screen. "You do all this without saying a word?" Isaiah cracked a small smile. "I just asked the system to watch what people don't want seen." She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. You know it's not going to stop here, right? He nodded. They're scared now, she said. Systems don't like feeling vulnerable, but they forget. People like us live vulnerable every day. Later that afternoon, Isaiah sat in a quiet room across from 3 representatives from Skynova's ethics board. Not legal, not PR. This wasn't about saving face. It was about rebuilding one. He didn't wear a suit, didn't bring a laptop, just himself. And a 3x5 card with 6 words written in black marker. What's fair isn't always familiar. They tried to start with questions. He raised one hand and calmly said, "Let me tell you something first." And then, finally, he spoke. Isaiah's voice was low, even, but it filled the room with a weight no one expected from a boy whose feet didn't even touch the floor. I didn't build Witness for revenge. I built it because I was tired of adults explaining injustice like it was a misunderstanding. Pause. You can't train away racism if you treat it like rudeness. Silence. You can't fix systems if you only fire individuals. Longer silence. And you can't say, "This isn't who we are," when there's video proving otherwise, over and over again. He set the card down on the table. "You asked me here to consult, so here's my advice." He leaned forward. "Stop managing perception. Start managing patterns." The youngest woman in the room nodded slowly. She slid a folder across to him. Inside, a proposal to make Witness integration standard across all Skynova flights. Real-time alerts, staff accountability logs, optional crew review modes. They'd even included a clause for protecting whistleblowers. Isaiah didn't smile. He asked one question. "Who owns the data?" They hesitated. He looked at them flatly. "If I don't own it, you don't get it." Meanwhile, the backlash began to take root. Not against Isaiah, but against the silence. Passengers shared stories on camera. Quiet employees submitted internal complaints that had gone unacknowledged for months. A pilot from Brazil resigned on air, citing a system allergic to decency. And in New York, a retired black flight attendant named Celeste Monroe, who hadn't been seen in public for nearly a decade, published an op-ed. What that boy did wasn't radical. What's radical is how long we tolerated what he simply revealed. The article hit 1 million shares in 24 hours. But Isaiah wasn't watching the news anymore. He was sitting in a city council meeting in Oakland, invited quietly, anonymously. On the docket, public funding for ethical AI enforcement in transit systems. He didn't say a word. He just passed a flash drive to the clerk and nodded. Inside it, a framework called Silent Shield, a stripped-down version of Witness, designed to help people who couldn't speak for themselves. Nonverbal passengers, seniors, children traveling alone, not for fame, for safety. As he left the meeting, a man in a pressed gray suit stopped him near the doors. "I work for the FAA," he said. "Not officially here, just watching." Isaiah didn't answer. "You shook the roots of an entire industry," the man added. "How does it feel?" Isaiah paused, then shrugged. "Like we're just getting started." The man stared at him a moment, then said something Isaiah wouldn't forget. "You didn't make tech. You made dignity operational." That night, at home, Isaiah sat on the floor in his room, the lights dim. He opened a notebook, not a screen, not a terminal, just paper. And he wrote 3 names. The boy on Flight 923 with the book. A girl who was removed from boarding for wearing non-compliant attire. A man in a wheelchair denied boarding after a crew shift changed. 3 people he'd never met. But Witness had seen them. And Isaiah, quietly, carefully, began building a new feature. Witness Reach, an automated system to follow up with affected passengers after incidents. Not just collect data, but offer human dignity, check-ins, resources, real action. The system would send them a simple message. "We saw what happened. You matter, and we're working to make it right." Isaiah's mom came into his room a little later, holding a tray with tea and fruit. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded. "Just thinking." She sat beside him. You know, some folks want a savior, others want a scapegoat. Isaiah didn't look up. And what do you want? He finally looked at her. Accountability. She smiled, leaned in, kissed his forehead. That's what makes you dangerous, baby. It began with a line. Just a red velvet rope and a laminated sign that read, "Authorized access only. Boardroom level." Isaiah stood in front of it, hands in his pockets, badge around his neck. Not a school ID, not a boarding pass, but an all-access guest credential issued by the FAA's Civil Ethics Division. And still, the man in the security blazer didn't look convinced. "Sorry, kid," he said, folding his arms. "This area is off limits unless your name's on the list." Isaiah didn't flinch. "I was invited," he said calmly. "Check under guest observers, Civil Tech Advisory Board, 4th entry." The guard didn't move. "Your name?" "Isaiah King." That did it. Not because he was recognized, because the guard wasn't sure what to do anymore. 24 hours earlier, a memo had circulated quietly through senior aviation circles. FAA is piloting an ethics compliance summit. Several third-party AI designers will observe closed-door policy panels. One includes Witness. No one expected the designer to be 13. No one expected him to show up in a hoodie. And no one expected he'd be seated at the far right end of a walnut conference table next to Senator Colton Myers, the same man who'd previously called Witness a woke toy built by TikTok nerds. Myers glanced at Isaiah once, then looked away. The panel started with a quote projected on screen. "The measure of justice in any system is not how it treats the powerful, but how it corrects the powerless being wronged." Isaiah knew that quote. He'd coded it into Witness's original onboarding module, but hearing it here, recited by someone in a three-piece suit, felt hollow. He said nothing. He just waited. One by one, board members gave opening statements. They talked about policy harmonization, about global scalability, about AI cooperation, and guardrails. Isaiah listened like a surgeon watches a weather forecast. Interesting, but irrelevant to the actual wounds. Finally, the chair tapped her mic. "We'd like to hear from Mr. King." Half the room turned toward him. The other half just blinked, unprepared. Isaiah set his voice level. "You're trying to regulate behavior without ever asking how people experience harm." No one interrupted. Not yet. "You're focusing on data models when the real problem is moral models." Still silence. "And you're asking how to avoid lawsuits when you should be asking how to rebuild trust." The senator finally scoffed. "With respect, young man, how can someone your age understand how to architect a solution for an industry this complex?" Isaiah didn't blink. "Maybe the industry being this complex is the problem." Low chuckle across the room. One exec whispered something like, "Kids got bite." Isaiah leaned forward. "You built complexity to avoid accountability. Witness strips that away. You don't like it because it works." A woman 3 chairs down whispered into her phone. Her screen read, "Witness boy shreds FAA panel." Leave quote thread after the meeting. Isaiah didn't linger. He walked out past the security rope, down a stairwell, and into the public hallway like any other passenger. But before he could reach the exit, someone called his name. A woman in a red blazer, mid-40s, crisp voice. "I'm Diane Keller, FAA's liaison to international airspace initiatives. May I walk with you?" He nodded. As they strolled past TSA offices and quiet elevators, she didn't waste time. "You have leverage. You also have clarity. That's rare. What you don't have is a coalition." Isaiah looked at her. She went on. "People support your system, but what you need now is infrastructure. Buy-in from the networks that keep the air running." He stopped walking. "And what do you need?" She smiled slightly. "A future where AI isn't built without conscience." That night, Isaiah met with his mother and 3 Veritas board members at a private home office back in Oakland. He presented his expansion plan. Not about scaling Witness, about decentralizing it. Instead of one master system, he proposed local witness nodes, modular, airport-specific tools that adapt to their environment but stay linked to a shared ethical backbone. They wouldn't just watch. They'd educate. They'd alert, train, reconcile. And every time an incident happened, passengers wouldn't just get a review case number. They'd get options. Apology, mediation, real-time transcripts. Even the chance to flag silence when nothing was said but everything hurt. One board member asked, "You think airlines will agree to all that?" Isaiah replied simply, "No, but their investors will." The next morning, a joint press conference aired live from Logan International. A partnership was announced. Veritas Fund plus FAA plus 3 regional airlines. The agreement? All participating airlines would receive access to Veritas Sustainability Capital in exchange for mandatory integration of ethical transparency systems in 2026. The name? Echo Line Initiative, powered by Witness. Isaiah refused to speak at the podium. He let his mother do it. But when cameras panned to him during the applause, a quiet moment caught everyone. He looked straight into the lens. Calm, steady, unapologetic. A boy who'd never yelled back, just listened harder. Across the country, in a private hangar in Houston, Clarissa Vaughn watched the footage on a dusty screen. She'd been fired, blacklisted, and now forgotten. But what shook her wasn't the press conference. It was the small footer that appeared at the bottom of the screen. "This system is not designed to punish. It is designed to rebuild." Clarissa turned off the TV. Then she did something strange. She sat down and wrote an email to Witness, requesting to volunteer for its public outreach program. Back at home, Isaiah checked the system one last time before heading to bed. 3 new airports flagged for integration, 12 new reports reviewed, and one message in the public inbox. "I was the girl from seat 9D. I froze. I didn't say anything when the man beside me made that comment, but your system did. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, and thank you." Isaiah stared at the screen for a long time, then whispered to himself, maybe silence is only deadly when it goes unshared. It wasn't a courtroom. It wasn't even a formal hearing. But the moment Isaiah stepped into the panel chamber at Sky North's main headquarters, it felt like Judgment Day. The room was sleek, chrome-lined walls, matte black ceiling panels, and a long oval table centered under a giant illuminated seal. Sky North Executive Ethics Council. 12 chairs, all filled. A 13th, empty, reserved for Isaiah. Except no one told him they'd booked it in a boardroom that looked more like a firing squad than a conversation. Still, Isaiah walked in quietly, didn't look rattled, and sat down. His hoodie? Gray, clean, pulled tight over a pressed collar shirt. His hands? Folded neatly on the table. He didn't bring a lawyer. He didn't bring a presentation. He didn't even bring a phone. He brought himself. And the ghost of a moment the industry still refused to name. Across the table sat Meredith Rowe, VP of Internal Compliance for Sky North. She started with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Mr. King, thank you for coming. We appreciate you taking time from school." "I homeschool now," Isaiah replied. Calm, almost disinterested. Meredith blinked. "Ah, well, that gives you flexibility." Another exec, a man with 2 white teeth and a crimson tie, leaned in. "Let's get straight to it. We've reviewed the witness report from Gate 43A. While we agree the conduct shown by our flight attendant was unprofessional, we also found that certain technical overextensions were made." Isaiah tilted his head. "You mean the system worked?" He wasn't asking. He was correcting. There was a long pause before the man continued. "Your system triggered 6 cascade alerts across our ground staff logs, 4 public reviews, 2 temporary suspensions, and a $13 million stall in our IPO launch last quarter." He said it like an accusation. Isaiah didn't flinch. "Then maybe the system isn't the problem. Another voice, a woman from legal affairs, cut in. The issue is proportionality. You built something with outsized influence. People don't vote on witness, it just exists. Isaiah finally leaned forward. You don't vote on truth. You only decide how much longer you're willing to ignore it. Meredith tried to calm the tension. Look, Isaiah, what happened to you was wrong. No one here disputes that. But your system has made a lot of people nervous. Isaiah nodded slowly. Maybe they should be. That was the first 10 minutes. What followed wasn't a debate. It was a reckoning. The council tried, gently at first, to suggest co-regulation, then licensing, then acquisition. You'd be very well compensated, one board member said. We could appoint you to an advisory role. Isaiah didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Sky North has a pattern of internal silence. That's what witness exposes. Buying me doesn't fix that. Someone scoffed. You're 13. Isaiah met his gaze evenly. And somehow, I'm the only one in this room who read your own ethics handbook. When the room fell quiet again, the chair of the board cleared her throat. Mr. King, would you be open to a compromise? Something constructive? Isaiah waited. The chair continued. We're piloting a new approach, an internal protocol to retrain staff through simulated scenarios, a digital empathy overlay. Maybe you could help us soften the interface of witness. Isaiah paused. No, she frowned. Why not? Because empathy isn't software, it's behavior. Then he reached into his hoodie, pulled out a folded sheet of paper, and placed it on the table. What's this? Meredith asked. A list of passengers who submitted witness reports on Sky North in the last 90 days. Reports you buried. I gave the FAA full access. Nobody touched the paper. Nobody had to. Everyone in the room had already read the memo, and everyone knew what it meant. The data wouldn't be buried again. Not after it had gone public. By the time Isaiah left the room, no one stopped him. No one spoke. The room that once echoed with silence now sat in it, like shame that hadn't figured out how to apologize yet. Later that week, Sky North released a joint statement. We acknowledge recent internal challenges and are committed to building a more equitable and accountable passenger experience. As part of this initiative, we will integrate the witness system into our pre-boarding and post-flight review procedures. It didn't mention Isaiah by name, but it didn't need to. A day later, Isaiah received a package. No return address. Inside was a navy blue envelope and a simple card. Just 3 handwritten words. You were right. He didn't know who sent it, but for the first time since Gate 43A, Isaiah let himself smile. Not because he'd won, because the system had worked. But the story didn't end there. Witness didn't just monitor flights anymore. It started being used in school buses, court waiting rooms, even emergency shelters. Not to punish, to document, to make silence visible. And Isaiah? He went back to coding. Quietly, consistently. He didn't give interviews. He didn't attend panels. He didn't want to be famous. He wanted to be useful. One evening, his mom found him sitting on the porch, staring out at the Oakland skyline. Long day? She asked. He nodded. Want to talk about it? He shrugged. Everyone wants witness to work, but they don't want to change what made it necessary. She sat beside him. And what do you want? He looked up at the sky. To never have to build something like witness again. She didn't say anything for a while. Then she rested her hand on his. That's the most grown-up thing I've ever heard. Back in New York, the woman from Gate 43A, Clarissa Vaughn, stood in front of a classroom of new hires. She wore a red blouse, her voice steady. She looked at the screen behind her. Ethical training, the witness era. And then she said something no one expected. I was the flight attendant. Gasps. Silence. I yelled at a child because I thought I could get away with it. I thought no one would remember, but the system did. And I'm here now because I want to help make sure no one forgets. Back on the porch, Isaiah received one more email that night from an airport janitor in Detroit. It read, I saw something today. A guard making fun of a refugee family because they didn't understand where to go. I logged it through Witness. The guard got flagged. The family was helped. I just wanted to say, your code gave my silence a voice. Isaiah sat back, closed his eyes, and whispered to no one in particular. Then it's working. Oakland never really slept, but that Sunday morning had a strange kind of stillness to it. The kind that felt like the city was holding its breath. Isaiah King sat at the back corner of Cafe Ella, hands wrapped around a warm mug of hot chocolate. Not because it was cold. California didn't believe in real winters, but because that was how he stayed grounded. No screens, no earbuds. Just the hum of a downtown that didn't yet know what was coming. Across from him sat Alicia Monroe, lead counsel for the Veritas Consortium. She wore a navy suit, no jewelry, and a single pin on her lapel, a triangle with a circle inside, the mark of witness-accredited legal reform. "Do you know why we asked you here?" she asked softly. Isaiah nodded. "Because it's not about one flight anymore." Alicia gave a small smile. "Exactly. Since Sky North's reluctant partnership with the witness system, over 3,400 flight-related complaints had been reopened across the country. But it wasn't the number that scared people. It was the consistency. Same language, same power imbalance, same quiet disbelief behind every incident. Until now. And Isaiah, whether he liked it or not, had become the eye of the storm. Alicia slid a folder across the table. "We want to bring this to federal review. Department of Transportation, Civil Rights Office, and we want you to present the case." Isaiah opened the folder. Inside, anonymized transcripts, facial recognition patterns, flagged audio logs. It was an archive of discrimination no one had been forced to name until a kid built a system that wouldn't look away. He didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, softly, "If I do this, I want to do it in my words." Alicia nodded. "Of course." He looked up. "And not in a suit." She smiled. "You wear whatever makes you you." 1 week later, Isaiah stood in front of the Federal Aviation Oversight Council, flanked by 2 monitors and 1 mic. He didn't have a lawyer. He didn't bring a press team. He didn't even wear shoes that matched. But he had evidence. And when he clicked the first slide, the screen filled with a mosaic of faces. Children, seniors, disabled veterans. Every one of them a recorded case in the witness database. Isaiah didn't start with a speech. He started with a question. "Do you remember the first time you were made to feel small, for something you couldn't control?" No one answered. He didn't expect them to, so he kept going. "Some of you think this is about race, and it is, but it's also about assumption, about what happens when power meets routine. When someone decides your worth before you open your mouth, and what happens when systems protect that decision instead of challenge it." He clicked the next slide. A 73-year-old Korean grandmother barred from boarding because her accent was too thick. Next, a black veteran told to step aside so a real passenger could board first. Next, a mother of 3 flagged for suspicious behavior because she cried after being told her autistic son couldn't pre-board. Next, a 9-year-old boy, his own file. "I didn't build witness to punish people. I built it so we could finally hear what silence had been holding. And now that we've heard it, what are we going to do?" A week later, the Witness Act was drafted. Within 30 days, mandatory behavioral audits were ordered for 9 airlines. 3 executive resignations occurred at Sky North. The FAA launched the Echo Standards Initiative, a joint protocol requiring every U.S. airline to integrate ethical feedback tools into onboarding procedures. But that wasn't the headline. The headline was what came from the Senate floor. A lawmaker from Michigan stood and said, "This country was built by people who sat in the wrong seat and refused to move. If we're smart, we'll listen when the next generation says, 'You're sitting in the wrong system.'" And the chamber applauded. Not politely, but loud, long, like they meant it. Back in Oakland, Isaiah kept going. He refused every interview except one, the PBS Youth Civics Summit. When the interviewer asked, "Do you feel powerful now?" he shook his head. "No, I feel responsible." The night the bill passed, Isaiah and his mom walked to the rooftop of their apartment. She brought apple slices and silence. He leaned against the rail. "I didn't want to be famous." She nodded. "You're not. Systems are." He chuckled. "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "No," she replied. "It's supposed to make you sharper." Then she looked at him and said the one thing she hadn't said since Gate 43A. "I'm proud of you." Isaiah looked at the stars, then whispered, "I think I'm finally proud of me too." 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. Delta Blue Airlines voluntarily installed Witness without a federal order. They held a press conference, but instead of a CEO at the mic, a young flight attendant stepped up. Her name, Jenna Luis. "I used to think accountability was a threat," she said. "But now I know. It's a mirror, and we all need one." She paused. "Thank you, Isaiah King." Back at Cafe Ella, Isaiah sipped another hot chocolate. A woman approached. Black coat, tired eyes, 2 children at her side. "You're the boy from the flights," she said softly. Isaiah looked up. "I was," he said. She shook her head. "No, baby, you are. Thank you." She pressed a small box into his hand, then walked away. Inside was a keychain. Just one word, heard. And for the first time, Isaiah cried. Not because it hurt, because it mattered. Because all those stories, they weren't just data. They were people. He knew Witness wouldn't fix everything. He knew there'd be backlash, corporate spin, attempts to bury it all again. But now, even if they buried it, the system would remember. And so would the people. And that was power. The kind you don't need to yell about. The kind that whispers back, "We see you now." It started at 2:17 a.m. While most of the country was asleep, Witness was wide awake. The system's alerts began quietly, just a few flagged entries from a red-eye flight out of Phoenix. A passenger reported being told to shut her foreign mouth by another guest. The flight crew did nothing. Within 6 minutes, another incident came in, from Denver, then JFK, then LAX. By 3:02 a.m., 37 incidents had been logged in real time. The Witness system didn't panic. It learned. And by 3:15 a.m., it had activated a Level 3 alert, pattern recognition breach, coordinated misconduct suspected. That alert? It didn't just sit in a database. It triggered a secure call to Isaiah King's terminal. Isaiah was already awake. He had trouble sleeping since the Senate hearing, not because of stress, but because his mind wouldn't stop running. He looked at the blinking light on his laptop. Witness alert, priority 1. He tapped the key. On screen, a full overlay of the country, with red pins blooming across the map like wildfire. The message at the bottom chilled him. Coordinated degradation pattern detected. Recommendation: escalate to Oversight Tier 1. Suggest human review. He clicked the tab labeled Source Spike. It showed one flight, Sky North 184, boarding Gate B6, Phoenix to Baltimore. He recognized the names in the logs. The captain, the head stewardess. And then he saw it. A new player. A passenger named Kay Tillman. Logged on 4 flights, each with derogatory content complaints. Each within a span of 2 days. Isaiah frowned. He clicked into the profile and froze. The name wasn't random. Kay Tillman was a PR consultant for Vanguard Air, one of Sky North's major competitors. And that name had popped up repeatedly on anti-Witness online forums. He typed a command. Flag coordination pattern. Flight disruption propagation to Tier 2. Then, without hesitation, he picked up the phone. The other line answered instantly. "Elise here. Judge Elise Montgomery, now heading the Witness Oversight Alliance. Didn't sleep much either these days. "It's happening," Isaiah said. "How bad?" He turned the screen to his webcam. Elise let out a slow breath. "That's worse than bad. Looks coordinated, possibly PR-driven. Might be an attempt to discredit the system through noise. You think they're trying to flood it?" Isaiah nodded. "Not just flood. Overwhelm and frame. Make it look like witness can't tell the difference between real pain and fake outrage." Elise rubbed her temples. "All right, I'll call Monroe and the FAA, but we need a counter-response." Isaiah stared at the screen. "No," he said. "We need to show that the system evolves faster than corruption does." By sunrise, Operation Mirror Protocol had been activated. Witness switched to Tier 1 Deep Learn mode, isolating linguistic markers, speaker cadence, and geospatial activity. By 9 a.m., 142 entries had been voided, automatically proven false. At 9:12 a.m., the system posted a public dashboard update. Attempted mass falsification of behavior reports detected. Investigation in progress. Source pattern ID, Delta Mask Chart 47A. It was the first time the system had called out a smear campaign in real time, and people noticed. Media outlets initially tried to twist the event as proof the system was flawed, but the twist backfired. Within hours, independent journalists, tech ethics experts, and passenger rights groups flooded the discourse with hard data. Hashtags like "You tried witness" and "That echo doesn't sleep" trended nationwide. Isaiah didn't post a single tweet. He didn't need to. Meanwhile, Vanguard Air's CEO released a tepid denial. Too late. A whistleblower leaked internal emails suggesting a noise injection campaign had been pitched by Kay Tillman weeks earlier. And that pitch included a plan to strategically plant ethical complaint noise to destabilize public trust. When confronted, Tillman denied everything. But Witness had audio. Clean, time-stamped, and irrefutable. By day 3, the Department of Transportation had launched an official investigation into Vanguard Air. Their stock dropped 13% overnight. On day 4, a coalition of airports declared temporary suspension of all Vanguard Air check-in kiosks pending audit. On day 5, Witness published a new policy. All passengers attempting to flood or falsify behavior reports are now subject to permanent ban across all Witness-integrated airlines. That list already had 78 names, and counting. But the biggest shift came when SkyNorth CEO Leslie Carrington went on record with a single statement. "Systems evolve. People must too. We stand with Witness." It was the first time in airline history that a private company publicly supported a system designed to expose its own flaws. The next day, 3 other CEOs followed suit. Witness was no longer an experiment. It was a standard. Isaiah watched it all from his bedroom. He didn't celebrate. He didn't post. He just opened his notebook and wrote a new line of code, one that would prevent voice print mimicry in future attacks. That night, he sat by the window with his mom. She brought warm cookies and a look he'd learned to understand. "We're proud, but we're scared too." "You know this isn't going away, right?" she said. Isaiah nodded. "Neither am I." She reached over and touched his hand. "Just promise me you'll still be a kid sometimes." He gave a crooked smile. "I promise I'll try." At that very moment, across the country, in a courtroom in Chicago, a woman named Marla Jean-Pierre stood trial for assaulting a flight attendant who'd harassed her autistic child. The defense? Witness footage. The jury saw it. Unedited. Objective. Clear. Marla was acquitted. The flight attendant? Suspended indefinitely. And the courtroom. It stood and clapped. For the first time in state history. By the end of the week, Isaiah's school invited him to speak. He didn't want to. He hated standing on stages, but he went anyway. When he got to the mic, he looked out at hundreds of teens. Some wore witness pins. One kid had a hoodie with the phrase, "I don't raise my voice, I raise the standard." Isaiah chuckled. Then he leaned forward and said, I built Witness to listen better, but it only works if we use it better. This isn't about me. It's about what happens next." He paused. "You ready?" And the crowd didn't cheer. They nodded. All of them. Because they knew. The wind outside Geneva's Palais des Nations howled like a restless conscience. Inside, it was silent. Nearly 400 delegates sat in the grand marble hall, representing 89 countries, 26 airlines, 41 tech firms, and every major transportation agency on Earth. At the center, a boy in a dark blue sweater, Isaiah King, 16 years old, and he was about to speak not just for himself, but for an entire ethical infrastructure. The backdrop behind him bore just 2 words in 12 languages: "Truth counts." Isaiah's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the mic. His mother watched from the second row, her gaze locked, steady as stone. Elise Montgomery, now ambassador for aviation ethics, gave a short nod. Isaiah didn't write a speech. He never did. He leaned in, took a breath, and began. "When I wrote the first lines of code for Witness, I didn't think it would leave my laptop. I built it because people I loved got hurt, and no one listened. No system protected them. Not airports, not teachers, not supervisors. People got silenced, so I wanted to build something that couldn't be silenced." The hall remained still. "I didn't want revenge. I wanted memory, accountability, pattern, data that couldn't be denied." He looked out at the rows of ambassadors, CEOs, regulators. "Today, this isn't about a kid and his app anymore. It's about how we protect dignity at scale." Then he clicked the remote. The giant screen behind him flashed to life. It showed charts, reductions in in-flight incidents by 47% since Witness adoption. Complaints now triaged by AI within 3.2 seconds. Median time to resolution, under 12 hours. But then, darker bars. Rising attempts to sabotage or discredit the system. Corporate collusion, paid trolls. Even attempts to clone Isaiah's voice to fake entries. Isaiah turned back to them. "Some of you tried to shut Witness down. Some of you funded campaigns to discredit it. Some of you offered me money, more than I've ever seen, to walk away." He paused. "I didn't." The crowd shifted, uneasy, intrigued. He clicked again. Now on screen, a diagram titled Ethic Rank. A new layer of Witness. Isaiah stepped aside. "This is the next phase. Not just reporting behavior, but measuring organizational ethical integrity in real time." Gasps, a few murmurs. He explained, "Every airline, every agency, every company that adopts Witness will now have an ethic rank score. It's not just about passengers. It's about patterns, hiring, training, responses, transparency." He clicked again. "This isn't about shaming. It's about evolution." Then he added, "And no, it's not optional." Silence. Then one voice stood up. A tall man from a Scandinavian airline raised his hand. "Are you proposing mandatory ranking?" Isaiah nodded. "If you use the system, you play by its metrics. If you want public trust, earn it." Another delegate, this time from a North African aviation board, stood. "What about bad actors gaming the system?" Isaiah smiled. Witness already flags false positives. It now also monitors internal manipulation attempts. If you try to fake a high score, you'll drop even lower. Then, calmly, "This is a conscience with teeth." Elise stood. She walked slowly to the podium, joined Isaiah. "To all present," she said, her voice smooth but firm. "This summit ratifies not just the existence of Witness, but its elevation. As of today, any international airline under UN aviation compliance must install and comply with the Witness protocol, including ethic rank." More silence. Then applause. First from the youth delegates, then the passenger unions, then, slowly, the tech consortium leaders, and finally, the largest airline CEO present. After the session, chaos, Interviews, requests, arguments, CNN, Al Jazeera, BBC, and Nikkei all fought to get sound bites. Isaiah didn't speak to any of them. He walked down the back stairs, found a quiet bench, and sat. His mom followed. "You scared them," she said. "I know. They needed it." "I know." Meanwhile, inside the summit, a separate screen went live. It displayed the first live Ethic Rank leaderboard. Sky North, 88.4, Blue Horizon, 76.2, Vanguard Air, 42.3, blinking red. Air Free, Europe, 91.0, Veritas Transit, 94.7, and at the bottom, a message. Scores update every 6 hours. Transparency is not a trend, it's policy. By nightfall, Twitter erupted. At Ethic Rank # Dignity Score, built by a boy. But it wasn't about Isaiah anymore. It was about everyone who'd ever been silenced on a flight, kicked from a line, mocked in a uniform, told they didn't belong. It was about memory and choice. The next morning, Isaiah received a private message, a 12-word email from the head of FAA oversight. "You made the sky safer without ever needing to fly higher." He smiled. Then he opened his laptop and pushed one more update. It would allow any child, anywhere in the world, to report abuse, discrimination, or fear through voice command, even if they had no internet. And the system? It would listen. That evening, Elise addressed the media. Witness was created by a teenager, but it's no longer a teenager's tool. It's the nervous system of accountability in modern travel. And from now on, she said, no one flies above ethics. The gate number was A29, the same gate, the same airline, the same city. Isaiah King stood silently, staring at the boarding screen. The logo of Sky Nova still pulsed faintly on the monitor, as if the digital veins of the industry hadn't caught up to the moral rupture just yet. He wasn't here to fly. He was here to watch. Just 10 days earlier, this very gate had gone viral. A video captured by a nearby witness-enabled passenger showed a flight attendant raising her voice at a young black child for asking about a seat change. That child, of course, was Isaiah. What followed wasn't just outrage, it was revolution. The aftermath launched the witness protocol into 17 new airlines and triggered audits in over a dozen more. But Isaiah hadn't returned for closure. He returned for a test. From behind his hoodie, he watched the crowd shuffle in. Among them was a young white woman, early 30s, in a pale gray blazer, tapping angrily on her phone while dragging a designer bag. Next to her was a black mother in scrubs, gently guiding her daughter forward, carrying a purple backpack with pins shaped like stars and animals. Isaiah didn't need context. He'd seen this movie before. The gate agent's nameplate read, D. Prather. He was already annoyed. No, ma'am, we're still boarding business class in Group 1. You'll need to step aside. The woman in scrubs held up her ticket. We're Group 1. He didn't look. Ma'am, please, wait over there. Isaiah's fingers twitched. The purple backpack girl looked confused. But it says right here. I said wait. And then, just like a reflex, Isaiah heard the tone. That same tone. Sharp, flattening, assumptive. The tone that tells you your presence is a problem. Behind him, a soft buzz. Witness had activated. The system flagged the interaction as verbal bias escalation. D. Prather had just made the same mistake his colleague had 10 days ago, and he didn't know who was standing in line behind the girl. Isaiah stepped forward. He didn't say a word. He simply tapped his phone, activating witness relay mode. A green circle pulsed in his palm. The gate agent's tablet blinked red, then froze, then disconnected. Prather stared at it. What the? His voice trailed off as a low chime came over the airport's PA system. Attention, Gate A29. Please stand by for an on-site ethics calibration event. Security and witness compliance officers are en route. People looked around. Isaiah took one step closer. Then he turned to the woman in scrubs and her daughter. You can board now. he said gently. "You're Group 1. The woman stared at him, confused. "Who are you?" Isaiah smiled faintly. "Just a passenger." The gate agent's earpiece clicked loudly in his ear. A voice came through, female, authoritative. "Gate Agent Prather, please remain still. You are currently under provisional review." He froze. By now, several airport staff had arrived. 2 from Skynova Compliance, 1 in a gray vest bearing the Veritas Transit Oversight logo, and a 3rd in a blue blazer with Witness embroidered in white on the lapel. They didn't say much. They just surrounded Prather, then politely asked him to remove his badge and hand over his tablet. He complied with the stiffness of someone trying to hold on to whatever dignity they thought they still had. Isaiah turned to leave, but just before walking away, one of the Veritas officers stopped him. "Mr. King," she said, "there's a message for you from the Ethics Council." Isaiah raised an eyebrow. She handed him a card. Not a business card, a data card. Slim, matte black, with a golden insignia that read, "Clearance, Stratum Vi." He nodded, tucked it into his hoodie, and disappeared into the crowd. That night, news broke. Flightgate triggered by Teen Tech founder results in instant suspension, system audit. Witness protocol now enables real-time accountability. Industry scrambles. Who is this boy, really? The silence behind the revolution. But Isaiah didn't read the headlines. He sat at the train station platform outside Terminal C, watching planes lift into the sky. Behind him, the girl with the purple backpack boarded safely with her mom. The next morning, in a quiet glass building on the outskirts of Zurich, Isaiah placed the data card into a terminal slot. A holographic screen illuminated the room. The words read, "Welcome, Isaiah. Stratum Vi granted. Global Ethics Grid interface unlocked. Below it, thousands of incident reports, policy drafts, and shadow data flowed." Then, a blinking message. "One node still remains unchecked. Initiate Ghost Line Protocol?" He frowned. Ghost Line? He tapped. A new interface unfolded. This time, not about flight incidents. It was about ownership chains, policy loopholes, and suppressed internal documents. Some of them dated back years, others just weeks. And all of them led back to one place: Skynova's parent conglomerate. Isaiah leaned back. So this wasn't over. Witness wasn't the finish line. It was just the entry point. Because now, it wasn't about incidents anymore. It was about systems, about who profits from bias, about how silence became a revenue stream. And now, thanks to that final card, he had the clearance. Back in the States, the girl with the purple backpack posted a video on TikTok. Just 15 seconds. No captions. Just her smile and a caption that read, "He didn't say much, but everything changed." The comment section exploded. Who was he? Was that Isaiah? #Witness Protocol forever. Protect this kid at all costs. And quietly, trending beneath it all, had Ghost Line rising. It started with a flicker. Not a loud crash, not a headline. Just a blink. Across airports in Atlanta, Denver, Frankfurt, and Johannesburg, screens momentarily turned gray, then pulsed back to life. A tiny watermark now appeared in the corner. Ethic rank active. Most passengers didn't even notice, but the crews did. So did the executives, and certainly the shareholders. Because that blink meant only one thing. Skynova's flight operations were no longer solely in Skynova's control. Isaiah watched it unfold from the living room of his grandmother's house in D.C. The old house creaked in the corners like it always did, smelling faintly of lemon oil and radiator heat. He sat cross-legged on the floor, the same floor where he once coded his first interface as a 9-year-old with crayons and graph paper. His laptop buzzed softly in front of him. A dashboard full of colored grids, each square labeled with an airport code. He clicked one. Sky EU. Core. It opened a live policy feed from Brussels. A new flag appeared. Crew member flagged. Ethics rank below threshold. Status. Auto paused. Under review. He didn't smile. He just took a breath. This wasn't revenge. This was repair. Across the Atlantic, at a shareholders meeting in Geneva, Skynova's CEO stepped onto the stage. He looked tired. For weeks, the company had scrambled to suppress the system Isaiah helped expose. They had failed. The ethics scorecards were now public. The witness system had gone international, and more damaging than anything else, public trust had shifted. People were booking flights based on ethic rank, not price, not amenities, but accountability. Back in D.C., Isaiah's mom sat beside him, a nurse's badge still hanging off her jacket, tired from the night shift. She ran her fingers through his curls. "They know your name now," she said softly. He shrugged. "They knew it before. They just didn't care." She looked at him. "And now?" Isaiah finally looked up from the screen. "Now they care who's watching." The media kept chasing interviews. He turned them all down, except one. Not a TV anchor, not a tech vlogger, but a retired teacher from Baltimore who ran a podcast called The Quiet Fix. They met in a library, surrounded by soft carpet and old wood shelves. The teacher asked him, "Why didn't you speak out right away? You had every right." Isaiah replied, "Because silence is what they expected, but they didn't expect silence to have a system behind it." Meanwhile, other kids began uploading their own moments. One in Tokyo. "This stewardess didn't let me speak Japanese. Witness caught it." One in Nairobi. "They tried to skip my grandmother. Now their score dropped 12 points. One in LA. He called me ghetto. Then the gate froze. Felt like the system blinked. They weren't afraid anymore. They were documenting everything. A month later, the Federal Aviation Board held a public hearing. Skynova, Veritas, Delta, and 5 other airlines were summoned. The topic? Passenger dignity and AI accountability in civil aviation. Isaiah was invited to testify. He declined. Instead, he submitted a single-page statement that simply read, "You built the skies. I just made sure someone was watching." Back home, one night, Isaiah stood alone on his grandmother's porch. The streets were quiet. A winter breeze rustled through the oak trees. From his pocket, he pulled out a small silver pin, the one he used to wear on his backpack as a kid. A pin shaped like a paper airplane. He pinned it to the edge of the porch railing, a nod to where it all began. And quietly, almost like a prayer, he whispered, "Let the next kid fly easier than I did." Then he went inside, and the porch light flickered once behind him. Have you ever seen justice arrive without a word spoken? Tell us where you're watching from, and if this story moved you too.